Who can apply for Access to Work?
Access to Work is a government-funded initiative that provides help for people with disabilities to actually perform and function as anybody else might.
The Access to Work programme applies to anybody in employment.
You don't have to be on a contract of employment in order to apply for Access to Work. So in my case, I applied as a self-employed person.
How do you apply, and how long does it take?
Make an initial phone call. It's simple from there on.
I would say it's very easy to apply. The people who answered the phone were very helpful. They understood what it was I was asking for, which was an application form.
It was a very simple form. They were very helpful on the phone, and actually everything was pretty well done for me, and all the way through they said, you know, can we help you with this? Do you want it in this format or that format? They were very aware of my personal needs, and it wasn't bureaucratic. I think the most bureaucratic thing I had to do was, you know, write my national insurance number.
It's not frightening. Once you've made that initial phone call, it's all plain sailing really, and very quick. I was quite amazed how quick the process was and how easy.
It was a simple phone call. It was a discussion over the phone about what I did, and then I had to fill out a form. But it was a very simple procedure, and when I spoke to people on the telephone initially, they were very, very, very professional and went through all sorts of questions with me and actually explained what would happen next, how long it would take, and in fact the approval came quite quickly.
When I initially made the phone call to Access to Work, I had to go through an application form over the telephone, just answer a few basic questions about my disability, the difficulties that I find at work, and just basic questions like that. And then within a few days I got quite a swift response. I think the initial contact was via email, but it was perfectly okay for me to call up the main call centre and then answer my questions over the phone.
What support can I get?
Access to Work provided me with screen magnification software, which also talks sometimes. They have provided me with a video magnifier and also a support worker.
I get my transport costs paid for me, and I've got some adaptive technology to help me do my job better.
The equipment I have is not complicated. Voice recognition software, which allowed me to dictate text rather than type.
The help I got from Access to Work was they sent us around a support worker once now and again, and she really helped me out with my daily routine.
I've had an exceptional level of support from Access to Work, help with my adaptations on my vehicle, and in fact a couple of wheelchairs along the ride as well. To be told that, you know, the level of support that I can now have as a support worker, transport, you know, travel for them to come with me when I'm doing my trips to weekly meetings to London.
It made recommendations for me, and in the recommendations I had text-to-speech software so that I could have documents read aloud to me.
Thanks for getting back to us. It would be the responsibility of the employer to provide appropriate support to employees with disabilities.
If I can hear my work read, then I can recognise the mistakes that I might have made. And it's also given me mind mapping software to organise my thoughts and processes, as I have lots of ideas, but they're a bit jumbled, and this helps me to put things in order and into perspective. So it helps me to save things so that I don't forget, and puts them into a constructive order for me. It also gave me voice activated software so that I could speak to my computer and didn't have to worry about the spelling problem. I've also been provided with a support worker to help with my organisation and proofreading, so that I don't feel as though I'm putting on my colleagues all the time. That was a bit embarrassing, really, you know, because I'm sure they've got enough of their own work to do without having to cope with me.
How do I know what support I need?
After I made contact with Access to Work, I was given a workplace assessment.
When I contacted them, they said that someone would come and see me, have a look at my workstation and just try and find out a bit more about my disability and the type of work I do. By doing that, they really seemed to understand what type of difficulties I would have in the workplace and what type of adaptations or ways of working could help me in order to achieve the best of my abilities.
We would always prefer to see the real situation in which work is done, and that means visiting people at home as well as at work. And our only criteria for success in an assessment is that somebody's life is enhanced by that process, that they're better off after it than they were before. We would always want people to know that an assessment is about empowering them as they are to be everything they wish to be and everything they can be.
The assessment was quite interesting because I'd never used any adaptive technology in my life.
Going through that process was really good, and they were able to help me, give me some good ideas, a few tips here and there that I hadn't thought of, that I was able to actually bring back and incorporate into what I'm doing in my workplace.
What are employers' responsibilities?
Access to Work has made it possible for me to take the measures that I have done to make sure my employees all have the facilities to help to do their job. That's what they're paid for. It's incredibly inefficient for them to go off sick with minor problems like back pains or stress. It's something that we could easily avoid by making this available to them. And the Access to Work is an angel in disguise that gives us the help to do it. By actually providing this to the employees, not only you are providing an environment, a caring environment, you're actually making them more efficient. So you will, as time goes, you become incredibly valuable member of your company, and they are the ones who tend to stay with the company longest. They're more loyal.
Who did we talk to?
I suffer from mild cerebral palsy. I have done since birth.
I'm partially sighted.
I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at the age of 3.
I have motor nerve damage in my shoulders, my left arm, my left leg. I have some post-viral fatigue, and I have some cognitive symptoms which are very much like severe dyslexia.
I'm a dyslexic person, and dyslexia comes under the Disability Discrimination Act, and Access to Work help dyslexic people.
I've got a very rare condition called Meader's syndrome, and only about 200 people in the country have it.
I have a disability called spinal muscular atrophy, which basically means that I have an overall weakness of muscles.
I have cerebral palsy and dyslexia.